about this amazing meeting in Kuala Lumpur by the UN? Aside from us, was it all over the media? No. Was it all over NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN? You know, these great things that the UN is cooking for us, right? What does that tell you? They're trying to do these things under the cover of secrecy, under darkness, media blackouts on all this until they're ready to spring it on us. All these plans that they have cooking. There were tens of thousands of people at this meeting, and they don't want to tell you what's going on until they're done. They don't invite the general public. But Michael Greer went and is here to report back. Yep. On what they have cooking for all of us. The things that they don't want you to know, the things that the media doesn't want you to know. So when Michael was telling me all these things that were going on, it was just so clear we needed to share this with you. So thank you for being here. I think you will be thunderstruck. But forewarned is forearmed. Knowledge is power, and that's why we're here. So please welcome Michael Greer, Vice President of the American Freedom Alliance.
That was very interesting. The UN always has wonderful names for their various things that they do. This one was called the World Urban Forum, number 9. Woof. The theme of this year's UN Habitat Conference is Cities 2030, Cities for All. And they're not kidding. You're all going to be living in cities in high-rise apartments with no cars. That's their plan. Craig Recker of CFAC and Climate Depot wanted Debbie Bachagalupi and me to go to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for this year's conference and report on what the UN has planned for us. It was a big conference. There were 22,000 people there from 165 of the 193 countries that are signed on to the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Yeah, most were official representatives of their countries. They were UN ministers, country ministers, city planners, mayors, government officials, environmentalists.
How many Americans?
And very few. Yes. The minute we got off the plane, we were surrounded by ads for the, for the conference. They were wrapped around poles. They were flags on all of the light poles. They were everywhere. And the first thing we encountered after we got our badge, well, I should talk. We got into a lull in the check-in process, thank heavens, because it was about as long as airline lines to get your little badge. These wonderful little badges that we got are like credit cards. They're plastic, and you had to swipe them going in and out, no matter how many times you went in and out. And there were officials that had special badges, and there were areas that we couldn't enter that you had to have special badges, and they were guarded by UN police officers. So as we went up the stairs to the conference hall, the first thing we encounter, of course, is the UN 2030 Sustainable Development. And of course, the first thing is no poverty. Now, how are they going to end poverty, do you think? Maybe minimum income for everyone? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Everyone should make the same amount of money so that if you're a brain surgeon or a ditch digger, you'll get the same amount of money. Sounds like a dream to me. These gentlemen were the ones that took the picture of us coming up the stairs. And we said to them, where are you from? Because they had American accents. They said they were from New York and they worked for the UN in New York. And we said, so how do you like Trump? And, and they went like this. And then they said, just wait, things will change. So there was a high level of security. There were hazmat squads, vehicles, and vehicles, hundreds of Malaysian police and UN police surrounding inside and outside the convention center. And plus the fact we weren't allowed to the opening ceremonies, which I thought was interesting. We had to watch it on we had to watch it on our computers. But on the first floor of the convention center, the convention center was very large. It was 2 wings, 4 stories high, and all of those, the whole thing was the UN convention with sessions going up and down all the halls. And the bottom floor was all exhibits from various countries. The biggest ones were from France and Germany. And of course, America had the smallest one, which I was very pleased, and only one person manning it. So that's how interested we are in that. But also, one of the things you find out, Malaysia used to be a Hindu country, was originally a Hindu country. It's now Muslim, and just about every woman was wearing a hijab, as you can see. This is our new UN Habitat Executive Director. She is from Malaysia. And she is she received an award and a standing ovation. She plans to she's been working with ICLEI around the world, and if you understand, ICLEI is the way that they're implementing Agenda 21 throughout the United States. There are 600 ICLEI cities in the United States. Los Angeles is one, Santa Monica is one, Santa Barbara is one, Ventura is one, Santa Cruz is one, and they are all working to implement Agenda 21. And her goal is to use gender in all of the policies, of course. There were. Yeah. Oh, and they involve youth in everything they do. This opening ceremonies. Running free. Cities for all. And as you can see, there were a lot of people at the opening ceremonies. It's just we peasants weren't allowed to go. Then we got a lovely message from Prince Charles. And you can tell what
Your Excellencies,
you want.
ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to send this message to you in Kuala Lumpur for the 9th session of the World Urban Forum. Now, I'm only sorry I cannot be with you in person, as the vitally important matters you will discuss require decisive action if we are to have any hope of achieving the critical Sustainable Development Goals, which, as you all know, are so dependent upon practical implementation of the new urban agenda. Failure to grasp these issues within the limited and ever-decreasing time available will have catastrophic consequences for our planet. What continues to be so very difficult to comprehend beyond this audience, ladies and gentlemen, is that the world's urban population is expected almost to double in the next 40 years. This alarmingly rapid urbanization presents urgent and complex challenges for both people and the planet. However, if the world's urban footprint is to grow, we do have an unprecedented opportunity to redefine urban development. If, and only if, planned and managed sensitively, cities can add social, environmental, and commercial value in a way that helps to tackle climate change and foster inclusive prosperity. It seems important to me that we also put equal emphasis on ensuring an holistic approach to urbanization, one which considers settlements of all sizes and enhances the real and effective integration between urban and rural areas, so that vital ecosystems, biodiversity, and food production are maintained into the future. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, whilst we need to identify solutions for urban growth, we must not forget that there could also be opportunities to provide smaller rural settlements with digital technology to deliver information to villages so that access to microfinance, social networks, and online education can enable a sustainable, distributed economy in which most people could walk or bicycle for their everyday needs. Interestingly, my old university, Cambridge, is researching the whole issue of smart villages as part of the Cambridge Malaysian Education and Development Trust. Now, it would seem obvious that as the urbanization we face is so rapid, then our response to planning and managing that growth must be equally swift. Essential tools in this respect are urban codes and architectural pattern books. When used properly, urban codes can enhance creative freedom and diversity and establish overall coherence within each town and city. Vital, ladies and gentlemen, if we are to ensure that any such vast urban growth brings some sense of character and human scale, let alone genuine sustainability. Equally vital are rapid response plans which can, at the most basic level, help to protect primary public spaces, transport infrastructure, and green corridors that provide a framework for sustainable growth. A kind of bare bones approach to planning in which local communities, of course, have such a vital and invaluable role to play. Ladies and gentlemen, you have my very best wishes for your deliberations over the coming days in Malaysia, a country I was thrilled to have the opportunity to visit last November. During that tour, I was also delighted to meet Datuk Maimuna Mohammed Sharif, and now to learn, subsequently, that she has been appointed as the new Executive Director for UN Habitat. I can only wish her every success in what is surely one of the most important agendas of our time. So, I would therefore urge you all to seize the opportunity of this unique gathering to share and develop practical initiatives and working partnerships that will make the new urban agenda a transformative reality. Business as usual is not an option if we are to deliver meaningful and positive change for the growing number of people living in towns and cities, and for the generations yet to come whose future is literally in our hands.
I think that was one of the most frightening things to me is that in all of the discussions, in all of the sessions we went to, they discussed governance. They didn't discuss governments. Yes. They discussed governance, and they planned to have it come from the UN. And they don't talk about these settlements in various countries. They talk about, which was another thing that annoyed me, is they call them human habitats or human settlements. which reminds me of, the elephant habitat or the lion habitat, will be in the zoos and the animals will be running free. As I've showed at various times the map, the UN map, that shows that these red areas are no human use. And so this is what they plan for us, yes. And in California, it's the whole mountain range. It's no human use. So if you like to hunt or fish or dive or camp or hike, you can forget it. I think you'll have to have great permission. But if you notice how they put all this together, the right to the city, the advocacy, learning, decentralized cooperation, low economic, it's frightening. So their plan is basically that 70% of the world's population will be living and working in megacities by 2050. Hopefully by 2030. That's why they call it the 2030 Agenda. And it was interesting in all the sessions that we went to that if you ask them, what about people who are living in rural areas or have farms or ranches, and they look at you like you have two heads. Yeah. Well, you're not going to be there. They'll decide where they're going to be farms. As you well know, they don't want us to eat meat. So, but we tried to question the various people we met. We asked the next city CEO and former director of New Jersey's Regional Planning Association, Tom de Blasio, about President Trump, and he rolled his eyes. We talked to the Ford Foundation, the Lincoln Institute policy, funded by the Ford Foundation, that seeks to improve quality of life through the effective use of taxation and stewardship of land. That'll lead to some really happy endings, won't it? Pennsylvania professor Eugenie Birch had a similar disappointment. Trump took away the needed funding for the NUA implementation. He did. But now, how many of you think, well, never mind, it doesn't matter because he pulled us out of the Paris Agreement? How many think that we're good now? No, because Obama, being the clever man that he is, he committed us to the Paris Agreement until 2020. So I'm sure he was hoping that there would be another Democrat president and they would just continue on. So we are still in the Paris Agreement until 2020. And right now the UN is demanding that we pay the money that Obama committed to the UN. So we'll see how that goes down. But I think Trump probably can handle that. I think the frightening thing is that all of these countries are on board with all this. They're absolutely on board. They're committed. These are all the people who are on planning commissions, who are mayors of cities around the world, and they're on board with this. And they are pressuring us as hard as they can. And many of them are very far down the road to this implementation already, which is pretty sad. We sort of laughed at this one. They wanted you, these were all little signs about, walking, riding bicycles, whatever. And so Debbie and I said, oh yeah, we want our pictures taken with that. Because they say how much we're going to love living in walkable cities. I can just see all the 80 and 90-year-olds with their walkers living in walkable cities, can't you? And I can see how you're going to get your parents to their doctor's appointments on a bicycle. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah. This was a funny wall. It had all. They put these up to inspire you with green. What do you want in the future? And it was green cities, cities for all. All of this stuff. Debbie put up private property. And I put up fossil fuels. What? Yeah. Oh yeah. So they have, if you notice that, it says local and regional governments, the global task force. It's, I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that we have regional planning commissions that are unelected and unaccountable, and they override your local planning commissions. And they're all, once again, on board with the 2030 agenda. These are some of the names of some of the sessions that we went to. And I always love the way that they word things, because they make it sound so nice. I mean, like One Planet Cities, incentivizing. You know what they mean by incentivizing? Number one, money comes attached. But number two, we're going to tax you and regulate you right out of what you want to do and into what we want you to do. And the multi-level governance. That's, once again, multi-level governance does not mean your local government. The planners, the urban and territorial planning, that has nothing to do with what you want. Integrating municipal land use. Once again, they'll decide what it is, you won't. And then I love the safe cities, the safe cities for women and safe cities for men. Now we all know that in big cities, yeah, no, they don't. Yeah. Especially white men. Yeah. The safe cities for men and for women and youth, I just loved, because, as we all know, that big cities have also high crime and high poverty. Their plan for safe cities is to surveil you. You will be on camera 24/7, and they will use facial recognition so that not only will you be on camera, they will know who you are. And that is their plan. That is, they discussed it openly. They discussed taking cars away openly. And one of the things I found troubling is their yes, facial recognition. Yes, they're already using it. They're using it in several places. They use it in China right now, and they use it. I understand England is using a lot of it. Yeah. And as you can see here is transport, and it's all bikes or scooters or bus. Yes. And here you have everybody on a bicycle, but you don't see very many people that are over the age of 50 on those bicycles. Yeah, but yes. And here's one planet. That's another thing I love. One planet. So we're all going to be one planet with one government. And they talk about how they're going to implement it. And then you've got your global covenant of mayors that are all planning this for us. Near sustainable urban development in the other thing that they call it besides the World Urban Forum is the New Urban Agenda, NUA. And this group was interesting. They were from various countries, and that have large slums. And they're talking about getting rid of the slums. Well, we would all like that. They said in the past, what they would do is evict people from slums and then tear them down, but those people would just go to another area and build another slum. But now, see, they're very excited about this. Now they're going to buy the land and build high-rise apartments for the slum dwellers. And where are they going to get the money for that? Yeah, that money that Obama committed to for us to pay every year. So they're all very excited because, of course, these are third world countries and they're going to get a big shot of money. So they're happy to plan these things for us. And they showed us some of their slums, which are charming. So the goal is, this was from a panel that was in the exhibit hall. And as you can see, they want 5 billion people living in urban areas in 41 megacities. That's what they have planned for you, 41 megacities. They're not talking about 41 countries. They're not talking about 41 regions. They're talking about 41 cities, because there will be no borders, there will be no countries. There will just be these big mega cities with everyone living in apartments. Just sounds so much fun to me. Oops. And you know, as I said, they involve the youth a great deal. This was a group of youth action. They get them, you know, kids have. Yeah, IKEA, exactly. They had a whole lot of these displays all over the convention that grade school kids had done, and they asked the grade school kids to design cities for the future. And if you see that they are bowing to Mother Ganja. Kuala Lumpur Malaysia is a very tropical island. It's it was hot and humid. And you see miles and miles of palm tree forests that are really thick, but amongst them you see nothing but this going on. You see, all these high-rise apartments, as you can see, just blocks and blocks of them going up. When we had decided to go to Malaysia, Dr. Willie Soon, who's become a good friend of American Freedom Alliance, he is from Malaysia, so he had two of his school friends show us around. So we had Boone and Sai. Boone is an interior decorator and Sai is an architect. And I asked him, I said, Boone, do you live in a house or in an apartment? And he said, no, he lived in a single family home, but very few people do in Malaysia anymore. And here are some of the miles and miles of palm trees. So he took us, this was a little side trip, to the 300 stairs that you have to go up to this cave up here. And there were like a bazillion monkeys there that would jump down and pull on your clothes and want you to give them something to eat. And then when you got up there, there's this cave. They're building a Hindu temple there, but there is a small Hindu temple already there in that cave. And then we went, they have a Twin Towers as well. We went to the Twin Towers, this was just after we got down, and went on that bridge, which scared me to death. Because it's not attached on either side so that it can move, and you can feel it move. And you know, you're aware of the fact there's nothing below you. But so we went there. And then we took this picture from there. This right here is the convention center. You can see how large it is and 4 stories high and these 2 wings. And then there's this lovely park. And then these buildings down here, that's part of a mall. And it's a very large mall. It's 5 stories tall, which is a little, I don't like heights, so it freaked me out. The restaurants were on the 5th floor, and I couldn't look over the railing. So we took this picture from the Twin Towers down, and they have in this big pool, they have dancing fountains. And so this is Boone, our Malaysian guide, and Debbie and her niece. Her niece just graduated from college, so she brought her along as a graduation gift. Nice graduation gift. And here we are again. Then Boone and Sai took us to this street that's 5 blocks long and has little kiosks of restaurants all up and down the 5 blocks. And you sit out on the street, but cars still drive down the street. And this was a place that all the natives like to go to, so they took us to that for dinner. So Cities for All, Cities 2030. And they're not kidding. So when we first decided to go to this conference in Malaysia, we knew we had to stop in Shanghai, and we thought, well, we'd like to spend the day in Shanghai, both coming and going. So that was our plans. We had talked to the airlines, and we had researched online, and they said one thing said you could stay 144 hours in China without a visa, as long as you had that this was a layover for you to go to another country. And then we read something else where it was 24 hours. So we planned to go to China on our way there. So we get to Pudong Airport and go through 800,000 checkpoints. I mean, the security is unbelievable. And we get to this line that says 24-hour layover. So we go, oh, great, get in that line, which only had about 10 people in it, but we were in it for about an hour. And we met this gentleman, John Quigley, who turned out to be a very interesting man. He does art displays using people that you can only view from above. So he arranges people on the ground and then takes pictures from above. And he told us, Debbie told him that she went to the Paris Accord meeting, and he said, oh, he was there, and he arranged people to say 100% renewable energy. And I said, I don't want 100% renewable energy. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, look at practically everything you see when you look around this airport is made out of oil products or cattle products. So, and he goes, yeah, now. And I said, so you're planning on replacing everything? You have a replacement for plastic, do you? And then Debbie told him that she was a rancher, and he said, oh, I'm for the ranchers. He was in that group of people that were protesting the Keystone Pipeline. And I said, we have millions of miles of pipelines all over the United States, and we've successfully lived with them. And he just, once again, thought I had two heads. But anyway, here is his wonderful artwork from Kuala Lumpur. Cities for All. And below, with the little blue dots, those are umbrellas, and it's in Braille. And then this is the, sign for, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that was his big contribution to the Malaysian. So, and this was Pudong Airport, and as you can see, the air quality is really nice. But one of the things I found, I always am fascinated by little details. One of the things I found fascinating was that every single Chinese stewardess and every single female airline employee had her hair pulled back in a little bun. They were all young and they were all thin. They obviously have certain restrictions on being a stewardess or an airline employee. And obviously you can't sue for discrimination, age discrimination or weight discrimination. I thought it was fascinating. I mean, they couldn't even have bangs or little, hair. It was all pulled straight back in a little tight bun. But we went in this line and we stood in line for an hour, and when we finally got to the gate, they said, no, you can't leave the airport. And we said, but wait a minute, we understood that you could stay at least 24 hours. And they said, well, that's changed, and you can't. So we had 13 hours in the Pudong. Pudong is a perfect explanation for that airport. And we... Yeah. So that was our charming first 13 hours in China. So the first day when we were in Kuala Lumpur, we went to the Chinese embassy and we got visas so that on our way home we could go to China. And here we are. And as I said, I put this on my Instagram and I said, words I never thought would come out of my mouth. I'm in China. This is Shanghai, and it was one of the most fascinating things I've ever done in my life, both fascinating and also scary. This little family right here is so adorable. There was a mother and a father, or a grandmother and grandfather, I think, and probably their 3 adult children. The man at the end is taking a picture of them. He was like a cool guy. He's had black skinny jeans on and a black sweater and sunglasses. He was cool. And his brother was a monk. And so you can see he was dressed in the red. And then the daughter with her little girl. So they're taking pictures. We bought a ticket to take a ferry across, and we were the first people in line for the ferry, and we're just standing there talking, and then this family came and other people came. And so we're standing there talking, and the guy in black comes and sits down on the ground in front of us and is taking a selfie of him with us. And we started laughing, and then the daughter and her little girl, she scoots her little girl in between us and stands there and has them take a picture of her and the little girl with us. And I realized we're a curiosity to them, especially me, because they don't have blonde, blue-eyed people there at all. So I became like this big celebrity in China. People were stopping me to take pictures of me. And then, of course, we have this lovely statue first thing right there by the... So we went, and this, once again, this is China. It is all high-rises. This was going in and out of China. And one of the fascinating things, they obviously don't allow clothes dryers in China because, as you can see, clothes are hanging, and here they're hanging in the window, and they're hanging out on everything. And, I mean, every place you go, there's clothes hanging out. Yeah, and even in the sort of high-end looking apartments, it was like that. This one, there's about 5 or 6 buildings just like this that go down the street, and it's called Sunshine Inn. Don't you want to live there? This was part of the old town. When we went to downtown Shanghai, it was fascinating. We went to a mall, and one of the fascinating things is all around the world, whatever country you go to, all of the big cities are pretty much the same. They have big buildings and they have big malls. When we walked through the mall, it had Zara, it had Forever 21, it had H&M, it had KFC, it had McDonald's, it had all of those. So that was interesting, but we walked out of the mall and then up on a few stairs and realized this was a circular walkway around the intersection that was just a huge big circle, which I actually really liked the idea of. But we thought, this is like every city we've ever seen. We wanted to go to the old part of China. So we went, and as you can see, all of the signs everywhere were in English and in Chinese. And we didn't meet very many people who didn't speak English. So it says the Bund. We went on the Bund, which is a little cable car that goes underneath the river. And it's sort of like a Disneyland ride. It all lights up and makes lights and flashes lights and so forth. That was kind of a fun thing. But when we get it to the other side, the thing that we really couldn't ignore is the surveillance. There was no place you could go that there weren't dozens of cameras. One intersection we were at, we counted 30 cameras. And every building you go in, there are cameras throughout it. And as I said, they're using facial recognition now. So you can't go any place in China that they don't know that you're there. So we went to the old part of Shanghai, which is very traditional and fascinating. Huge crowds. It was Chinese New Year's, and they do love cartoons. So there were lots of displays like this all over. This was in the center of a big shopping area. And one of the other things that I noticed that I was really fascinated by, and I sort of walked around paying attention to this. We went into a big, right off of this, there was a big food court, and it was huge. It was like a whole city block size. It was gigantic. Hundreds and hundreds of tables of people sitting there and eating. Not one of them was looking at their cell phone. People had cell phones that were talking on their cell phones or taking pictures with cell phones, but you didn't see any of them on their cell phones the way you see in America. And I suspect it's because they don't have access to the things we have. Yeah, I'm sure they don't. And this is, the kind of displays in China that for the New Year. And here's what the crowds were. The crowds were like this all over. And if you notice, they don't wear pajamas anymore, but they wear quilted down jackets. And as you can see, they're all Chinese. There isn't a single hijab there. No, there isn't. I didn't see a single hijab. Yeah. This was kind of fun. These two gentlemen were playing a game. And when this guy put down his piece, he'd slam it down and go, ah! And when we came back about an hour later and crossed by them, these guys were still watching. So they were obviously fascinated. This is one of the typical little bazaars. This went really far in and had practically anything you could think of. It was amazing. But they're really skinny little narrow aisles that you had to sort of squeeze by people to get through. And there are lots of, it sort of reminded me of downtown LA in the shopping district where you have all these little tiny kiosks. There are little tiny stores. And they have lots of these open air places with food. So we went to this beautiful Chinese garden, and it had Hindu temples and things in it, and all of these were koi ponds. And it flowed through. It was very interesting rock formations. So we're walking through this, and I'm walking over a bridge, and this man has his cell phone out, and he's with his girlfriend, and he holds his cell phone out. He touches my arm and holds his cell phone out, and I think he wants me to take a picture of them. So, I start to take his phone, and he goes, no, and he pushes me against his girlfriend because he wanted a picture of the two of us together. And Debbie was coming up behind and laughing. And then this was a Hindu temple, and they have all of these idols, and they buy these ribbons and write on it their wishes, and then tie them on here. Whoops. And then we took the high-speed rail. This is the mag train. It's a little faster than it really goes, but it's just about that fast. And as you can see, all of the, once again, the buildings.
Wow. One of the most heartening things about the American Freedom Alliance is the level of enthusiasm, of knowledge, of passion, of concern, of engagement of the people who attend our meetings. So really fabulous. But you're right. Sarah's exactly right. Take this passion, this concern out and go be engaged in the community, as Michael was saying. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Michael. Fabulous.